If you're here, I know a few things about you. We're kindred spirits. You're here because you've been on the path, on the journey. You're searching for some form of fulfillment to address your relationship, likely with either addiction yourself, or you have someone in your world, in your sphere, a loved one, or someone you care about deeply, a spouse, a family member who may be struggling with addiction. You also probably are a follower, a fan of my incredibly talented, beautiful, and brilliant wife, Heidi Rain. And you may have met me before as we've done some videos together, and I never got into this space on purpose. It was kind of sprung upon me, although I have struggled with non-resourceful patterns. And what we're going to talk about is how addiction isn't about substances. I worked in the personal development field for many years. I worked with the master himself in the personal development space, Tony Robbins. I was on the road with him for many years, but years and years ago, I struggled myself with substances and other non-resourceful behaviors. And what I learned is how to master myself, master my emotions. And we're going to get into this so that I was able to quit everything, to stop everything in one day. One night, I made a decision to stop everything: drugs, alcohol, smoking cigarettes, smoking other stuff, and didn't touch anything for basically most of that stuff forever. Um, but what I learned is I got myself on a path, a path of personal and spiritual development, and relationships have always been my most valuable, most important thing. And it's beyond just intimate relationships, relationships with people. What I realized, it's our relationship with whatever those non-resourceful choices are, whether it be drugs, alcohol, porn, shopping, you name it. These are non-resourceful strategies at times, and sometimes can be addictions, couldn't they? So what happened was I ended up, as I was on the road with Tony Robbins, ended up getting recruited, and Heidi and I ended up essentially running a world-renowned treatment center, and we grew to three centers, and we applied what worked for us, what we found in the treatment space, that there wasn't a home for other ways of thinking. And what we dug into and realized, like, drugs and alcohol aren't the problem, right? They're the solution. They're an outcome that becomes a permanent or a habit, let's call it. But then when it becomes so bad, then we give it a different name. We call it an addiction. And it's our relationship with those experiences. So I ended up writing this book called Under Construction: Navigating the Detours on the Road to Recovery. And what I'd like to do is kind of go over it with you, and because there wasn't a home for this, right? We have, see above, familyempowermentwarrior.com. If you go there, you can learn more about an opportunity to spend time with Heidi and I. And this is a great place for us to connect, to communicate, and build a relationship on some ways that you and I can take our life to the next level. Because if drugs and alcohol aren't the problem, they're the solution. And whether we're struggling with it ourselves or we know someone who is, imagine how much more effective we could be in navigating that relationship when we have more compassion, more understanding, more appreciation for where we both are in relationship to that experience. And by now, you've probably figured out under construction is kind of the way our life is, isn't it? Aren't we pretty much always working on something? We're always working on our body. Maybe we're working on relationships. We're working on our connection to God. We're working on building our business. And what happens? Well, we usually get these detours, these obstacles thrown upon us, don't we? A thing happens, and then it's just a thing. What do we do about it? How do we respond? This is how we navigate the way. So I thought maybe what we could do is perhaps do some reading on it, and through that, I'm not just, this isn't an audio book. You can get the audio book on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. Amazon has that now. You can see that. That's what the audio book looks like if you're interested. But this would be a better version. When I was published, this was not self-published. They wanted someone else to read the book, so they had a professional narrator, and it's fine, but it doesn't have all the flavor, all the facts and none of the flavor. So what I'll do is, I think maybe we'll read some and then I'll interject some thoughts, and throw in the comments if there's a question or a thought, something comes up for you, go ahead and just throw it out there. I'd love to build a relationship, to connect with you more and be able to serve you, because what Heidi and I want for the world is to make the world a better place when we leave than when we got here. And we're doing everything we can to break that cycle. This is really for the kids, right? Because when we pass on these mindsets, these thoughts, these attitudes, these ways of being, they can then repeat it and so forth. So we need to look at ourselves, take personal responsibility. In many respects, this is a leadership conversation, because really, who's driving the car you and I, who's driving our car? We are driving our car, and we're also teaching others. We're teaching the people who look up to us. We're teaching our children. So the better we are at navigating, the better we are at interrupting those patterns, recognizing the non-resourceful patterns, and then doing something about it, well, perhaps we could create some positive change to have a more powerful impact that makes a positive difference. So when I wrote this book, this was also essentially like a case study. These were the strategies. I'm a master practitioner and trainer of neurolinguistic programming, and we'll unpack that another time, and neo-Ericksonian hypnosis. And I believe if you look over here, there's some playlists or a playlist of some hypnosis for you. But let's dive in and let's have some fun, kind of recognizing how you and I show up and what is our relationship with addiction, with non-resourceful patterns, and let's make a decision now to start doing something about it. So the introduction, the bad drive. I love using cars. I love using metaphors in general, but cars are such a great one because we're in them so much, and it's such a great analogy on how we show up. Like millions of people on planet Earth, I've had my share of turbulent times. And like most of them, I survived, black eyes and bruised egos notwithstanding. But I've learned a thing or two along the way that changed my life in very specific ways that are unique to my own personal journey. Life-changing things that I'm eager to share with you. Those experiences brought me to a place where I am today and fashioned the person who I am today. And if you've been on this channel, if you've spent some time with Heidi, you know how blessed I am to have her as my wife, my best friend, my muse, my partner, the ability to have this, to do this weekend. Like we were able to work together at the treatment center for almost a decade, where we were able to serve and add tremendous value to help both the clients who came into the treatment center and their families. Their families are sometimes the forgotten souls. They're the ones, there's all these resources and opportunities for the people who are struggling with addiction, but not so much for the families. And this is our passion, is to help the families, people who are in that, well, in that hurricane, as it were. So many years ago, I decided that I would spend the rest of my life discovering, growing, and sharing things I've learned to help others facing their own challenging times. With seemingly insurmountable odds now in my rearview mirror, I've been able to put those experiences in proper perspective and focus on the future. With hindsight as an indispensable teacher, I set a course for a new path as a therapist, mentor, speaker, workshop facilitator, helping others pick up the pieces of their lives and glue them back together in beautiful, complicated mosaics. So, as we have this journey together, as we create this opportunity for you and I to grow, remember, this is just a book filled with some ideas and perspectives. And what I'd like you to do is just try them on, just ponder them. When something I don't know, like resonates, maybe write something down, jot it down so that you remember it, so that you actually engage more of your neurology. Let's make this an interactive experience as much as possible. So go ahead and type something in the comment, type a thought, type a question. What pops up for you as we go through this? Because then we can go on this ride together, can't we? So, the title of this book is Under Construction Navigating the Detours on the Road to Recovery, because that's how life is. It's never truly finished with us until we reach the end of the road. And that would be our, I guess, our physical demise at this stage, right? Because who knows what's going to happen next. Metaphorically, the term under construction represents the way life seems to present itself as we work our way through it. So imagine for a moment where you're driving in your car on a clear day. You have a full tank of gas, your passengers are comfortable, and the radio is playing your favorite songs, and the ride feels great. Just imagine that. Just driving along, everything's humming. Right? Then, out of nowhere, here in South Florida, where I currently live, this happens quite a bit. Dark clouds blanket the sky overhead. Within seconds, the pitter patter of falling rain interrupts the rhythm of the music. Your phone rings, and it's your mother calling with her usual drama and trauma, and some of it aren't even hers, or maybe a lot of it. And before long, the drops of rain turn into a torrential downpour, and your wipers just can't keep up. And just a few minutes ago, there was a clear, open road, and now it's full of traffic with large trucks and vans in every lane pushing along at different speeds and blocking your view to the way ahead. As the heavy thunderclouds obscure the sunny sky, headlights blink one by one, and you're blinded by the oncoming traffic. As the wheels of the semi spray oily gray mud onto your windshield and the radio turns to static, one of your friends in the back seat asks a question that beckons a thoughtful answer. Yeah, have you ever been in that situation where things are going just kind of haywire, everything's going sideways, and then someone you care about, maybe it's your loved one, maybe it's a child, maybe it's your friend, they ask you something, they need you in that moment. They're asking something of you and you want to serve. You want to be there. Imagine that, all this craziness going on, and then boom, you're asked to be present. So, moving inch by inch, you're doing your best to concentrate on the road and respond to the question with compassion and sincerity when you notice a sign reading detour ahead. So now you've got that question, you're starting to ponder, and then something else comes up, right? When it rains, that's right, pours. If it's not one thing, that's right, another. So just keeps coming at us while we're trying to be present. So before we can process your limited options, you hit a pothole and your thoughts shift to flat tires and dented rims. As the fuel light starts to flash red, that light comes on. You idle precariously in the parking lot that moments ago was a wide open highway, and you imagine the car sputtering and stalling and the cost of new tires and an alignment. And with all this going on, you look for signs beyond vague detour ahead to get back on route, because now your GPS is no longer reliable. Have you ever had that happen where we've relied on the GPS? And we'll get into some other metaphors around that, but we've got to have some information in that GPS, don't we? Where we are and where we are going. And if we rely too heavily on something external, we may have some challenges, won't we? And we'll get into that. So frustrated, you realize that your journey is going to get even more complicated because you have absolutely no directions for this unexpected path, and your passengers from out of town have no clue how to help either. Now that you are dealing with multiple obstacles and challenges at the same time, I ask you, how effective is at addressing any or all of these obstacles can you possibly be? Like in that moment, when all that's going on, think about it. Remember a time when that's happened, when there was this craziness going on and it required you to be present, required you to make a decision, to be there for someone. How did that work out? Right? So think back on a time when you or someone you care about experienced this level of upheaval. How much compassion did you have for yourself or your loved one during that time? Can you look back now at the experience with empathy and love and forgive yourself, knowing that you did the very best that you could? Have you come out from under this ordeal with new wisdom access to grace and elegance, and the confidence to support and overcome future challenges. Because that's the goal. That's the goal here through this book and through our experiences is that we can learn and grow so that we could add even more value, so that we could serve on an even deeper level. This driving metaphor describes the emotional, psychological, and physical upheavals you and I go through as we navigate our way along the road of life. No doubt at some point in your life you have had similar experiences or you know someone who has. In hindsight, as I was chin deep in the sludge, I was not a very effective leader or visionary. But today I am capable of handling those experiences in a very different manner. When you are mired in upheavals, it can be almost impossible to differentiate the picture from the frame. But with some dissociated distance, you can gain perspective from and appreciation for these experiences, including the difficulties we put other people through too. Now, here's what's interesting. You may be here because you were struggling with a relationship with someone else who's struggling. Is it possible that you and I have also created some challenges? Like I owe my dad and mom a big apology for, and I've apologized as best I can. So it's interesting, isn't it, how so much of life is relational, that we all play a role in leadership. And this is going to be a leadership conversation ultimately is how are we leading ourselves? How are we leading our family? How are we leading and empowering others? So clear your mind and be open to what comes in. Maybe you could connect even more to God, to the otherness, to the universe to see what new messages, new opportunities for you and I to grow lie ahead. So think back on a time when you or a friend seemed to have a string of bad luck that just never seemed to end. How did you cope? How did you navigate your way through? At those times, real compassion is your most valuable resource, and you will find that a small shift in focus and a change of questions becomes power. You can't expect yourself or others to function normally, no less at a peak state with all that craziness going on. But simply acknowledge that the challenges stacking up in your path can open up a world of possibilities. Open roads, blue skies, potholes, and detours. A world you will learn to navigate with confidence. And that's our goal here, right? Is as we're learning, as we're experiencing, as we're growing, that we're gaining more confidence in the ability to navigate these obstacles more effectively. So during my eventful journey down some of these twisting roads, I've had the great fortune of discovering and accessing the array of useful tools that have helped me navigate many challenges. Some of them I learned by studying personal development through total immersion in the field. At about 17 years old, I came home a mess, hammered one night. And at that time, I'm going to date myself. This is in the 80s. Tony Robbins was on 24 hours a day around the world on his infomercials. I mean, you may or may not remember that infomercial, the original infomercial where Tony had the helmet hair and so forth. You go back and if you're a youngin, maybe do some research. Look for Tony Robbins infomercial 80s infomercial, and you'll see the personal power was the product. And it was 30 days to personal power. And I came home one night and I was like, Mom, give me your credit card. And she's like, for what? And I said, because I want that Tony Robbins personal power thing. She's like, oh, we have that, honey. I was like, we do? She's like, yeah, it's down in the den. It was still in the box, sealed. Now, I'm really going to date myself here. Cassettes. And one day I'll bring them out. I have them in the storage unit. I still have them. But they were cassettes. And I grabbed those out and I fully immersed myself in that field. And I started going to buy, getting everything. And without going into the whole story right now, at some point, let's have a conversation. Suffice it to say, I immersed myself in that space. And then I started going to events and really fully immersing myself until I ultimately got the training and I became a master practitioner and trainer of neurolinguistic programming, which I mentioned earlier. So I became a master practitioner and trainer of neurolinguistic programming, NLP, and neo-Ericksonian hypnosis. And I spent over 4 years with the world leader in self-development, Tony Robbins himself. I mentioned that earlier, with whom I traveled the country as a speaker and trainer, managing between 2 and sometimes 5 trainings a day, where I would go to companies, to organizations, and do a training, do about an hour, hour and a half training around some of Tony's philosophies. And we know of Tony because of NLP. And again, we'll have this conversation another time. At the time of this writing, so this was a little while ago, I spent at the time, so 8 years we spent almost 9 years at the treatment center, where we were guiding people through the difficult process of recovering. And having overcome my own addiction at a very young age, the field of recovery is very close to my heart, as I mentioned. I have coached, taught, and spoken at conferences on addiction and recovery across the country. And it's this experience and confidence that is both an impetus and the backbone of this book. It's important to note, however, that the philosophies that I share in Under Construction are not exclusive to substance abuse at all. Meaning, this isn't just about drugs or alcohol. This is about non-resourceful patterns. These are about habits that are taking us out of the game, that are taking us out of presence to our families. It's about taking us out of a leadership role, and rather than empowering our families, empowering our company, our employees, our internal and external customers, it's disempowering. It actually is like an energy vampire sucking the life out of them, because now they're trying to navigate us and they have their own life to navigate, just like you're experiencing potentially now, where you may have a loved one that is struggling and you're getting sucked into that whirlwind. And this book is a resource for you. And again, I'd like to remind you, FamilyEmpowermentWarrior.com is the opportunity for you to spend a weekend with Heidi and I, where we can dive in even deeper into this stuff and make it directly applicable to you, so that you can interact, so we can build a relationship around supporting your transformation. So, in fact, you will find these perspectives support recovery from any thought or behavior pattern that keeps you from creating the life of your dreams. One of the guiding principles I will show you relative to substance abuse is the drugs and alcohol are not the problem. As a matter of fact, they have always been the solution. They are an effective vehicle we can choose to use, but they are not sustainable. And if not addressed, they can become a problem. Or, as you will also learn, they will become an opportunity. So to get into some teach right now, think of the word problem. If you were to say right now, and do this with me, whether you're listening or watching, however you're doing this, say these words out loud. I have a problem. Now, if you're just listening, I'm watching. I'm listening. Really do it. Say it right now. Say it out loud. Don't just do it in your head, but say it out loud. I have a problem. Now, how does that feel when we say, I have a problem? Now, try this. Say, I have an opportunity. I have an opportunity. How does it feel when we say those words? I have an opportunity versus I have a problem. Interesting, isn't it? Doesn't your relationship with, I mean, gosh, if you could get anything out of this conversation right now, and what we're going to get out of this book together, is everything is a relationship. It's a relationship with this conversation. It's a relationship with the words we use. It's the relationship with our emotions. Everything we do to, and we're going to unpack this even more, it stems from some relationship, some way of communication with ourselves, with God, with each other, etc. So imagine the power you and I can have as we master our ability to navigate these roads. So powerful. So Under Construction will also help you understand why I believe that not only can we be successful, we can successfully arrive at a desired destination, but equally important, we can truly enjoy the journey. Now, here's what I want you to do. As you read this book or listen to it, give yourself the gift. Put aside all the things you know or all the things you think you know, and allow yourself the joy of curiosity. If you let them, the concepts I share with you in this book can influence and enhance your own perspectives. Plus, reading or listening to this book should be easy and fun. Now, you've already showed initiative by starting to listen now, by picking this up. And you've already invested time by getting this far. So I want to acknowledge you for that. I know if you're this far, we are definitely kindred spirits. There's something about what's going on in your life that has drawn you to this. And obviously, we want this to be the beginning, not the end. Or if we're somewhere midway in our journey together, it's our goal to be able to connect and serve, to be able to add value, to help be transformative. Well, not that Heidi and I are going to be transformative for you, that you are going to access the tools within you. We may guide you to them. We may create this space for you to have that transformation. And always remember, this is your opportunity to grow, to transform. All we're going to do is be guides, and maybe we'll be a little bit of a GPS. Maybe we'll be a little bit of that passenger who knows the road and says, at the light here, turn left, right? But this is still your choice. This is your journey. So we are kindred spirits. Let's try out a new car or truck or motorcycle together, whatever you would like to drive down this road. Let's get a fresh tank of premium gas, change the oil, put on some new tires, and get the windows clean. After all, that's how we started out on this journey, isn't it? So by the end of this book, it's my hope or my commitment that you will realize that everything you need to be successful is already within you. It really doesn't matter what you drive, it's how you drive. And I'm going to prove to you that you have the power and the capability to own the road, to live the life you really want. The obstacles and detours are no easier in one car than another. It all comes down to how you navigate your way through and around them. You've heard the line before, life is a journey. When you accept that you are special and unique and that you have something valuable to offer, you're going to have a very different trip. You are going places, aren't you? So the next vidya, the next chapter we'll dive into the book. It'll be chapter 1. This was just the preamble. This was the preface, the introduction to Under Construction, Navigating the Detours on the Road to Recovery. And please, let's make this a journey together. If it's just through this conversation, or you're ready to get even more intimate with us and spend the weekend with us, familyempowermentwarrior.com, where we're going to work with you to help unpack what's going on and give you access to the resources you always already have within you that may have been either dormant or maybe you didn't see them, you didn't sense them. But if you and I can figure this out, imagine the impact we're going to have on the world. As I said, this is a leadership conversation. We need to lead your family empowered. Lead your family empowered life with Doug and Heidi. So thank you for your time. I love you for who you are and who you aren't. Remember, familyempowermentwarrior.com. Learn more about, and oh, by the way, you could go to helpingversushurting.com and download a book that Heidi and I created so you could evaluate, is what I'm doing, give you some other resources. Is this helping or is it hurting? Because very well intentioned, there are things you and I do and we have the best intentions, and by doing so, we may be actually hurting. And we don't want to do that, do we? We want to do everything we can to support the transformation for ourselves and our loved ones. So we'll see you at the next chapter, chapter 1, which is Emotion is Fuel. And we'll unpack what our relationship is with our emotions and how we experience them. See you soon.